Let's pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the CPS website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Policy. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of this meeting has notified the superintendent's office of the desire to speak and has been provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting will also be read and made a part of the record of the meeting during the second public input session. So welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. Our first order of business is to approve our minutes for a meeting on August 6th.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of August 6, 2024.
I'll second that.
Okay, anybody have any corrections on the minutes? Okay, all in favor of approval? Aye. 4-0. All right, any good news?
Just we're obviously gearing up for school, but starting tomorrow is our new teacher orientation. So they're coming tomorrow and on Thursday for 2 days of orientation. So tomorrow is like the big kickoff where we'll be there and everybody will be all excited, all the principals, and they get to meet their coordinators. So they're going to be a whirlwind of information, but we're super excited to welcome almost 35 to 40 new people tomorrow.
Is that right?
Yeah, big numbers.
And they're all teachers?
Yes.
Okay.
Some counselors and things too.
Well, I consider everybody in the teacher unit, so teachers, counselors, special educators.
Is there like an orientation as well for other staff, or is it usually for
It's
teachers?
usually for the teachers.
Teachers.
That's required.
Thank you.
That's when they get all their credentials, they go over ed-eval, they meet with their coordinators, they meet with their principals, they have lunch together, all the, good things that happen at schools.
That's great.
And now what's next week's schedule then? The teachers come in?
So the teachers have a full day, a prep day, on Monday, the 26th. I wanted to make sure I had the right date, the 26th. Then students start on on Tuesday, the 29th. However, only our 1 through 8 students come because our kindergartners have an orientation day. And then at the high school, only our freshmen come. So the 10 through 12 students start on Wednesday because they have an orientation with their mentors.
And it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then no school Friday?
No school Friday.
And no school Monday, so it's
No
like a
school for the
4-day.
long
Right,
weekend.
right, the whole thing.
Four-day
Then
weekend.
right into the
Into
swing.
the, okay.
Yeah, everybody, all
Oh,
kids.
because Tuesday's a voting day.
No, we have school that day.
Oh, we
do.
do?
We just have a
Okay.
4-day weekend.
Gotcha.
A Labor Day weekend.
Right.
And then everyone comes back that Tuesday.
And
Everyone-
McCarthy Middle School
there
works
is
on the voting.
They just
keep
work, yeah.
They keep the kids outside for PE. It works out.
Right.
Okay, great. Anybody else have any good news they want to share? All right, moving on, public comment. We don't have anybody here, so I'm going to assume we don't have any public comment, so right into new business.
Sure. Got a few things we want to do tonight. Obviously, we got a lot of our business done at the July meeting, so the August meetings have been more prep. There has been a lot of activity happening behind the scenes to get ready for the start of the school year. We're really excited about the staff and students returning next week. I had mentioned one of the things we talked about doing last year, and I don't think we ended up doing, was at the tail end of this meeting, actually offering up a little tour to the committee members to go around and see some of the projects that got completed this summer and some that are still like in the works to be done. I'm going to highlight them in a little bit. But like I said, a lot of energy and time has been spent on kind of getting ready for the start of the school year. Just so you know, also internally, for kind of like planning purposes down the line, we had our admin retreat last week for 2 days, which was great. We had us all back in. We did a lot of work kind of looking at our strategic plan and all the different results we had from last year, starting to look at initiatives and things for the coming year. Linda and I are going to be meeting with Tess and DM Group this Thursday to kind of refine some of our proposed goals and initiatives for next year. And then I've talked to Tess. Remember, we don't meet the first Tuesday in September because that's the election day. So we meet the following 2 Tuesdays in a row. So I've asked them to see if they could identify one of those 2 nights to come and actually work with us around kind of school committee goals for the year, how they're going to align with the strategic plan work. And I'll let you know, I'll shoot you an email when I know which date that'll be, but that is on the horizon. And we're still working, obviously, on kind of refining ours, but already going into year 3 of the plan, which is great. We're excited to get that work going. We're also working on several of the reports and different information pieces that different committees members have asked for. So I'll start to kind of forecast those for you over the coming fall as we get going. One of the things actually we always kind of take a look at this meeting is student enrollment, so I'm going to touch on that in a moment. And then on that particular, so we're going to touch on that. We'll touch a little bit on student transportation, and then I'll give you some high-level information on the capital projects that occurred this summer. So we always do, just so you remember, the district's final kind of numbers for the school year are all predicated on the October 1st student enrollment. So that's what is kind of the driver for some of our budget decision-making. That's the number that the state uses when they calculate Chapter 70. So October is the time of year where it's kind of like that's your pure number. Those are the kids who are actually in seats in school, and that's what things are based on. At this point in time, the enrollment numbers I'm going to share with you today were literally just pulled from the computer yesterday. So this is what we're actually planning to start the school year with. Obviously, there are some students in here that may have moved over the summer, but they haven't officially been factored out. We also had families welcoming to the district today enrolling, so they're not in these numbers. So this is a little fluid for the first couple of weeks of school. But overall, you can see the total district enrollment tracking at just a little over 5,000 students. And again, this is our pre-K through 12 numbers. That's pretty consistent. We provide the information to you by grade level. And then it's a little bit easier at the elementary school grade level down below. I think this is good data that you've liked in the past. We have, typically our elementary schools are set up to have a 4 classroom configuration so that they'd be, say, 4 first grades, 4 second grades. In certain schools, we have what we call like a bubble classroom. So we might have to offer a 5th section of a particular grade level. So in that chart, it just gives you a sense of like what the average class size is. Obviously, you may have an individual class that has 1 or 2 more kids, an individual class that has 1 or 2 less based on needs or pairings, but it just gives you an overall good sense of our numbers in the district. Byam, as you'll see, is a school that actually has 5 sections at each grade level. That's the max. We really don't have any capacity for more than that. At Center School, they're our school, the second largest. They have 5 sections everywhere except for the second grade. Their second grade had a lower number. And then at Harrington and South Row, both of those schools are just 4 sections, with the exception of 4th grade. 4th grade was a large kind of bubble for us in the district. We have 5 sections at each of the 4 schools, so that's a little bit of an anomaly. We don't typically have that. But that's,
Can I ask a quick question about that, just that part?
yeah.
So, 2 things. The pods where the 4th grades have their classes, they're already set up so that they can handle 5 in the pods? They have,
Center School, we only have 4 pods because of the, they're attached to the
Yeah.
building. So when you're walking down the hall, the last classroom on the right is the 5th.
okay, but
fourth
their
grade.
hallway's attached, so it's not
It's
so
all
bad.
attached, so it's
Yeah.
not as bad. But in the pods in the other 3 buildings where they're detached, there's 6 classrooms.
Oh, good, good.
So 6 of them would be your, 5 of them would be your core classes, and then the 6th one would be like special education, L, or
Okay.
reading, something like that.
Yeah. And then the other thing, just Byam, I mean, where they have 5 sections at every single grade, has that impacted any of their specialist classes? Like, have they lost any space, like music or art or anything? Do you know if that's impacted that?
Not significantly as far as like the class offerings are concerned, like they still have dedicated art rooms and music rooms and things like
Okay,
that.
that's what I
It
meant.
definitely affects, and even when you walk through some of these buildings, like the interventionist type areas where you might do like some pull-out small groups and things like that, there's really just not a lot of space left in the buildings. They're very creative and, kind of crafty and carving out little nooks
Find little-
within the buildings, or you have a little kind of quiet hallway and they have like a little nook kind of built in, sometimes at the top of a stairway, at the bottom of a stairway. We don't have a lot of extra space for those kind of breakout rooms, but the core classes and even the specialist classes are still
they
dedicated
didn't lose that.
rooms.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So I see that the rising first grade class at Byam in particular is very large, even
Yes.
as compared to other classrooms there. And I have actually heard from several parents at Byam whose kids are rising first graders that they felt like those classes had concerning class sizes in kindergarten. I'm curious, as we look, I know that it's tricky to address this now, particularly since all of our schools are, about at capacity. But I'm curious,
Is there anything that the district has thought about doing, since Byam consistently tends to be on the large size, if there is another very large, exceptionally large class that comes through Byam, clearly there's not room for a sixth class, like what would happen in those instances? And are there any ways that the district has thought about to alleviate some of those very large early elementary class sizes?
Yeah, I think with the, we obviously look at this annually. We don't have capacity right now to go beyond 5 sections in a particular school without repurposing some of the specialist spaces within the building. So that would really mean actually kind of taking away, say, a music room or an art room or something like
I
that.
think more like rezoning. Like, is there any possibility that some of the schools that are lower?
Yeah, I mean, that's like a bigger thing. I was just saying, like, within the building, we really have looked at every, like, nook and cranny, and there's not much we can do. I will say, at K-1, we try to make a conscious effort to keep those numbers as close to, like, the 20-ish, 22 range as we can, and I really do think we do a very good job. Obviously, that one blip is that current first grade at Byam. Again, when you look at these numbers across the board, I'm very pleased with overall where they're at. If we would ever look into like a rezoning, obviously, we enroll purely by geography,
Right.
and neighborhood and address. It would just be a bigger discussion, and you need to put really kind of a policy and a procedure in place
Right.
to figure out how to do that. One of the biggest issues that would be a challenge for us is because, again, we look historically at like South Row, and South Row typically has always, I think for the first time, they had that 5th section. They typically are just a 4-section school. There's not a lot of build-out in that particular neighborhood. Ironically, the housing development on Turnpike, when that came up, we thought we were going to get a lot of kids from. We really haven't. And that actually falls in the center school zone. But we actually talked about, like, that's a perfect example of, like, maybe we would like annex that particular development as it's coming online because no one's enrolled in school yet. And say, if someone enrolled there, we would actually have them attend, say, South Row instead of going to center. So we've made those kind of decisions. We are going to have to take a look at West Campus when that comes online, only about a year or so from now. I don't have any, I know you asked about this, I don't have any hard figures as far as like exactly where their build is at or like when they're going to start to enroll. We're a good year away from that. But what we might have to take a look at is, does Harrington really have the capacity? They used to have 3 sections of 5s because they actually are our most transient kind of school as far as populations are concerned because of some of the different apartment and condo complexes that service that. That's one that we kind of look at. I don't know that Harrington necessarily could take on the full capacity of that project, so we may have to kind of figure out, do we actually, because those kids would be bused anyway. You wouldn't be walking from West Campus to, say, the Harrington. So would you actually, again, kind of annex that development or even a piece of it maybe to South Row? Because if your bus is picking up the kids at West Campus, you could shoot down Route 3 to South Row, probably as easily as you could to kind of whip around the back of Drum Hill to get to Harrington. But aside from that, we really have not looked into any kind of district-wide kind of rezoning or reshuffling of students. That would factor more into, there are districts that do it, basically by, oftentimes it's like programmatic needs or the schools offer different programs, why you'd want to do that. It'd be a bigger undertaking.
So, let's presume there isn't really much wiggling. For example, that rising first grade class at Byam. Is there work to make sure that those classes have consistent paraprofessionals and things like that, just to address what I imagine is a slightly greater need for adult supervision with such a large class?
Yeah, our paras are predominantly special education.
Right.
So they're in the rooms to support special ed students,
Sure.
obviously to help cut down on class size. A lot of them are dictated based on like IEPs, if there are services in the IEP. When we did our para review, we obviously looked at like the number of paras we have. We're very well equipped with the number of paras we have for these classrooms. School committee guidelines around enrollment also, I believe, top out at like 25.
Right.
So we're under those averages, and this is kind of a blip because if you look at the rest of Byam,
Right.
Your averages are 19, 21, 21, 20. It's just that one particular class class, that's a little bit high.
Yeah.
But, no, that's something certainly we would look at, the service needs of the kids. And that is something that we can adjust, within classrooms. We just really don't have the space to say create a sixth class.
Right, no, I understand that.
I do want to point one thing out, because this was a question I had last year about Harrington, and there was one there was one class that had a particularly high number of students when you just looked at the class list. But it ended up that quite a few of those students were in that, I don't know if they call it at Harrington, but the autism program. So they really weren't in the classroom for most of the day. So while the class list looked like the class was very large, the actual reality of the day in the class was not as large. And that's possible because Byam has a program like that class.
Yeah, for
Could have
this,
that.
for this kind of quick report, this doesn't take into consideration kids who are in those, we call them like a substantially separate program.
Right.
Byam and Harrington both have autism programs, and there are a good number of students, in a separate classroom. They wouldn't be part of the general ed class during good majorities of their day. Center has a life skills program, and then South Row has Strive. So those kids are all kind of baked into just these overall numbers. When we hit October 1st, remember I gave you that full report because it actually listed like the individual rooms, the classrooms and numbers. That's when you're going to get a better sense of who's actually being like educated for the literacy blocks and the math blocks and things like that during the day. That's even like when you get to the middle schools, you see some of those numbers are like, they're close to the average of 25s. But when we actually looked at, how many kids were in a class, I think McCarthy pops to mind, but most of those were actually like high teens, low 20s, actually in each teacher's class because there were multiple sections of English going on at the same time. It's not like your elementary core where one teacher is with one group of kids all day. The kids are rotating through a schedule. So when we get the October 1 numbers, obviously I'll provide that higher level detail and we can definitely talk about it then again. To your point though, Diana, I think what we'd have to do is really take a look at like the overall district enrollment policy.
Right.
And just see, is that something that, could be entertained? It is a big undertaking. If we saw consistent, year over year in classrooms, that would obviously be something we have to address.
It's such a changeable thing, though. So you talk about West Campus, but you also have Riverneck might come on board in a couple of years, and that's going to hit center, I would assume, right?
Right.
So that, it's going to,
Yeah, I mean, my main concern is I don't want to just wait for a potential new middle school building to, look at any changes that need to happen in the meantime. So the other thing that I noticed, for example, and I guess this would be my last question, is looking at this fourth grade class, it's clearly far larger than than the other classes in the district if we have 5 in every school. Is there any concern about capacity at Parker for the following year, since every elementary school would be feeding in 5 classrooms full of students?
Yeah, even if you look like across the very top of the spreadsheet, you can see that the fourth grade at
Yeah.
427 is the highest, right up through the elementary schools. The closest would be like the seventh grade at 407.
Right.
Space-wise, McCarthy actually has more physical space. Like if we had to even add, like we've done this in the past, like added a team, even like temporarily, because it's like a 2-person team, to cut down on the
Right.
numbers and things like that. It's a little tricky to do with scheduling, but it can be overcome. It's just the physical space in the buildings.
I meant more
They're-
Parker, yeah,
Yeah,
knowing
Parker,
that they're
they're
more
like
limited.
near and at capacity. Again, it is something that we can certainly look at, and we have a year to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But Parker, again, just doesn't offer us a lot of
Right.
options.
On this Parker situation and the movement of the fourth grade into fifth, so then we'll have to consider adding teachers as well. So additional teams to meet this particular need.
Well, that's what I thought,
Increased.
we've done that in the past.
Yeah.
When we have had certain numbers of kids, it's more temporary. And it's also just spatially kind of figuring out where they go in.
So the question about the temporary part of it, because all the way from fifth through eighth, then you're going to have an increased number of students in that particular class. So they keep on moving, and so the temporary team keeps on moving with them?
Potentially.
Oof, okay. So,
That's why it's not easy.
bubble teacher that goes through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had it
Yeah.
before, and,
Well, remember
so,
we had the, you'll remember like the split team.
oh, yes,
Yeah,
I
At
do.
McCarthy, and there's pros and cons to having those kind of things.
Yes.
But potentially you have to look at those.
Okay. So the other question I had is, I believe that, that project that's coming up, the Princeton one.
The West Campus?
I think it would be important to get an update because I'm not so sure one full year, but just kind of, get a scoop on what's going on there. And then the other thing is we have money there. So when do we get those funds?
I would have to look back at the record, but I know that there was a set aside for
Right.
when,
I think it's 400,000.
I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it was a good sum of money that was set aside for when they start to lease the houses and people start to move in, that we would have funds available to us for some one-time, kind of upfront costs.
Right.
I'll get more specifics on that. I couldn't focus on that for the start of the school year,
understand.
but it's definitely on the list to be working on this fall.
I understand, because that money is, not part of our budget, so
Right.
we could use it for, even temporary placement, actual physical space if we needed to do that, that type of thing to allocate so that they can move around. Because I have been in the schools before where you had those interventionists in the hallways.
Right.
They are very creative, there is no question, but it's still in a pass-through area and so on, so.
No, it's not ideal. We don't have a lot of like extra, we don't even have extra kind of meeting rooms or, conference room spaces for meetings. We're really kind of maxed out, which again, in the long term, I think a new school project, it will obviously will benefit from that. Because if you think about it, if you were actually able to take out 5 or 6 classrooms at the elementary level, because you've got your core and your special ed and L services and things like that, and put them into a new building that's kind of right-sized when we build it, that would help us significantly.
Absolutely.
But we definitely have to be thinking over the next 5 to 10 years, when we don't have that, what are we going to do to manage this? Overall, I would say I'm pleased with, the numbers and how, again, K and 1, we really do focus on being close to the 20 to 22 range. And then 2, 3, 4, we go up to, obviously 24 to 25. And that's within our guidelines. We obviously try to keep those numbers as low as we can, because obviously the closer to 20, I think, just allows a little bit extra space. But to Susan's point, this does bake in all kids in the school. So when we do look at the October 1 numbers, I'll give you the breakouts of who's in specialized programs and things like that.
Great, that would be great.
And then again, just kind of following along with this on the middle school front as well. The high school is just too difficult to run at this point in time because, again, you've got different iterations of kids coming and going from classes, and they're still, balancing and adding and dropping. But at the middle school level, this is, again, just the total number of students that we have enrolled by grade level, divided by the number of sections we're currently offering. So, if we ended up, just for example, next year, adding a section at Parker for fifth grade, instead of having 16 teachers, you'd have 18. We'd have an extra team built in there, and that would knock your numbers down a little bit. At the middle school level, again, those numbers include all specialized programs. So we have the autism programs, we actually have life skills programs, we have a bunch of different programs at the middle schools. So these numbers are actually the high end. These kids wouldn't all be in classes together all the time. But again, they're hitting our desired caps for the district. So I'm feeling overall pretty good with those numbers as well.
One comment on the high school, that is one of the highest numbers. That's a pretty high number compared, over the years.
The high school?
14, 16?
It's,
No?
to be honest with you, it's been higher.
Was it higher last year? I didn't compare it.
We'll do great.
No, we've been like in the 1,400 range.
We are there?
But the high school has capacity, to be 1,700 kids. There's plenty of capacity at the high school.
See, back in the day, my class was 650, so,
Is that right?
yeah, at Chelmsford
Wow.
High School, so
Wow,
Yeah.
they had plenty of capacity.
wow, gee.
The other thing at the high school level that you just don't have, say, at the elementary or even as much at the middle school level, you just have, while not ideal, you have more flexibility in use of classrooms. So if you've got a classroom being used, you have it available 7 periods a day, and a teacher's teaching 5 periods a day, there's the 2 periods a day that the teacher's not teaching, that a class could be repurposed. For someone else, you can keep your class sizes low, you can utilize class space a little bit differently. Again, we don't try to do that, but the high school just affords us more space than, for scheduling purposes, than the elementary schools do, or really even the middle schools for that matter. The teaming concept just kind of takes away that flexibility.
So maybe along the year, at some point, we may have to have some outside entity do some study of our space and make a provisional plan in case we need to move certain groups from elementary into other buildings or whatever. Look at all the options.
Well, I mean, that's part of what like NESDAQ did with us when they did the enrollment projection itself. And if you look back like to this front page, if you look across the top, you know, with the exception of like at the elementary level, the 400 number, you know, you're under 400 for all of those other grade levels. What we look for is kind of like the blips, you know, if you have a particular blip, you're going to see that number go from fourth, obviously, to fifth down a little bit. We do have some students, again, fourth going to fifth, and now we're going to see like eighth going to ninth. You have a dip because some kids will elect to do like a private, a parochial, a charter school, things along those lines. So you do lose some students, particularly at those grade levels. So that 427, you know, may be closer to 415 or something like that. But we'll watch the numbers, and that's something internally we can kind of report on how we want to address it. That fourth grade number is the only number that kind of like jumps out to me at this point. That's like a not a significant concern, but like a concern to be watching, just because, you know, we know when you get over the 400 number, because we've seen it, you know, currently in, say, 7th and 8th grade, those numbers are right around 400. You know, we don't want our class sizes on average creeping up over 25.
Right. Okay.
All right, but like I said, overall, I think we're in good shape for the start of the school year. It is amazing, though, to see people still like coming in because they realize school's starting next week, or they're like new to the community and they're moving, but we're still getting regular registration. So they're still coming in, and we're welcoming those kids on board, trying to get paperwork done as quick as we can, get assignments updated, and we should be good to go.
Now, since you have the middle school up,
Sorry.
I know this is our second year of the realignment.
Yep.
A couple of bugs last year. Anything new happening? I know scheduling was a little kerfuffle at the beginning, and
Yeah.
anything new happening at that level?
Not like significant wholesale changes or anything. I think the bigger issue that they looked at the, not even so much Parker, again, because you've got the two-person teams. It was McCarthy with the four-person teams that just becomes, again, like another scheduling element you have to add to it. They had so they have kind of reconfigured the team itself to be more in line with some of the specialists and some of the counselors, so that there's consistent counselors servicing specific teams. I think that's going to help. We did also schedule at the middle schools almost like two teams running parallel to each other. So if you had a particular issue where a child had to move from teams, there's another team at that grade level that's offering, say, like English at the same time or math at the same time. So you can interchange a child from one team to another. Let's say there was a conflict or there was a need. So you don't have to go and uproot a whole team. You might be able to just switch out one team member. So they made, like, after going through the schedule for the first year, they did certainly make some tweaks along those lines. I think the other thing that they've made a conscious effort, they tried last year, and obviously doing it for a year, it hopefully gets a little bit smoother, was scheduling some of the special education services to fall during kind of that second specialist block, because all of the kids in the school basically doing your 4 core classes, and they're doing a specialist rotation, but a second specialist block where they can do, like, say, an elective, or they can do a specialized service if that's what they're required, or an L or a reading, so that the kids aren't getting pulled out of a core class. They can actually schedule it into that section. I think that has gone a little bit better this year. So we need to give it a couple of weeks to kind of roll out. But again, nothing wholesale change. We're still offering the same classes and things like that. But it's more in the way that they've actually aligned the teams to be, I think, a little bit more conducive to supporting kids and potentially staff if things need to switch during the course of the day.
Great.
Just want to give a note, sort of a shout out that I got to go with my older son to the tour at Parker last week. Actually ran into Mr. John Moses there as well with his child. But we were really pretty thrilled at just overall the what am I looking for? The way in which the school is set up and aligned really with the needs of fifth and sixth graders, and just really appreciated that this is our first year where the kids in Parker will both have been in Parker the whole time. You know, all the kids there will have been in Parker, and the kids at McCarthy are all sort of in McCarthy as a 7th and 8th grade school. And I just thought my son felt very comfortable seeing that there were other kids close to his age there. And I just wanted to say from a parent perspective that I really felt really good about the way that things are going with the realignment.
We have gotten a lot of good feedback just around like the kind of the age appropriateness and even just like the age feel of having the 5, 6 in one building and the 7, 8 in another building. That really has gone well. At all the different levels this past year, one of the things that the schools through like the SEL initiative were really looking at was trying to support kids during the transition years, because now we've added a transition. You know, you used to just transition from elementary to middle and then high school, but we actually now have a 2-year transition, and sometimes in 2 years, it's hard to kind of build community and feel a sense of kind of belonging to the school. So they really did spend a lot of time this year working on with the elementary principals, kind of that pass off to 5, and then the 6th going up to the middle school, and obviously the 8th always going up to the high school. But it is good to hear that that you felt that way when you
Yeah,
were in this.
that's what I was hearing from parents, was lots of positivity and confidence about it.
Great.
Anything else on enrollment?
No, and more detailed reports will come, but this is just kind of like your snapshot to get our year going. Joanna just wanted to share with you some of our transportation numbers. So from a transportation standpoint, the registrations are still coming in strong. The numbers are very consistent with what we had last year. About 3,184 individuals had registered as of last Friday to ride the bus, which is good. We just kind of tell you when they actually register. Peter's been working very hard to create the different bus routes, and the bus passes were actually mailed out last Friday, the 16th, so people should have them in their doors this week. I don't know if we have any people who, did you get a bus pass?
We got bus.
All right, you got a
passes,
bus
2 of them.
pass. We're hitting 1,000 here today. So the bus passes went out, and we actually, on a positive note, we didn't get a lot of returns in the mail, which is good as well. So we know that people's addresses are good in the system, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. We obviously have to lock into bus routes to get the year started. So at the point where we commit the schedules and the bus passes get printed, the information also gets updated in X2. So a parent, when they go in the parent portal, can also verify their students' pickup and drop-off times. That's all on the computer. That's what we actually start with. So if people now kind of remember that they need to sign up for the bus, when they do sign up, they certainly can ride the bus, but they're assigned to one of the stops closest to where they can on an existing route. We, on a daily basis, don't go creating new routes and adding individuals, because it's really not fair to the people who registered on time and we created the routes around. We run the routes for 2 or 3 weeks. The bus drivers actually give us input into like what's working, or maybe there's a particular stop that needs to be altered because it's difficult for the bus to pick up. So Peter will take that feedback for the first couple of weeks of school. And then towards the middle of September, and again, by then, people realize they had to have signed up for the bus, so they do, and they get their bus passes. If there were any changes to the bus passes themselves, a communication goes out to the family to say, you know, this route had to be altered, we had to add a couple of stops, your time may be affected. If it's significant, you might get a new bus pass in the mail. If it's rather insignificant, the times just get updated in X2. That's just an upload. And then there's just an email to the parent just indicating a time in your bus route or pickup stop may have changed. Go ahead into the computer and just verify. So that'll happen through mid to late September. And then ongoing throughout the course of the year as people add to the bus. Most people will just join an existing bus stop, but if there is a bus stop that's just inconvenient or unsafe, we obviously can add those, but we try to give people plenty of advance notice. Overall, Peter and Joanna were happy that we had the ridership already registered that we did, so it's consistent with past years. We're hoping for a good school year. We are under contract with North Reading for 29 large buses a day. We do know that, they're trying to maintain the 29 dedicated full-time drivers for us, that they're still having a very difficult time getting substitute drivers. for not only our contract, but other contracts that they service. So we're going into this kind of fingers crossed, hoping that we're fully staffed on day one, and that they have some backup drivers. But Peter does, although we don't like to do this, he does design the routes so that in the event that, we only have 27 drivers for that day, he has ways to combine routes, to be able to add on, do an extra pickup here or there. Obviously, the buses don't run perfect to schedule when that happens. We try to notify people when we know that that's going to happen as quick as we can. But I admit, it's not always perfect, but that's not kind of the scenario that we plan for. We try to really have all of our buses be able and present. So we're going to monitor that. Joanna and Peter meet regularly with the bus company, relay information back and forth. I'll typically have a fall meeting with them as well and just review at the beginning of the year what's working well, what needs to be improved upon. And, we're just going to really try to communicate with families what's happening just so that they're in the loop.
So a couple of questions on the transportation. I've had some questions from some families who don't have access to computers at home and so are not able to access the X2 portal, or in a couple of the cases, have not registered for the bus. And I know you have to register even if you don't pay and so on.
Right.
So what do we do about those students? Is there anything, do we reach out to them by phone? What do we do?
What do you mean by reaching?
So for example, the student may be transferring from, from elementary into a 5th grade at Barker or going into the 8th grade at McCarthy.
Yeah.
And does not know where to show up, when to show up, what classroom they're assigned to, because they can't access the portal.
Right.
So that's one. And then number two is they may not even know where to go for the bus. They're probably going to go for the bus wherever they went last year.
Right.
But they haven't registered.
Right. So they do need to register.
So what do we do when those students, we know that the families don't have access and there's no way they registered?
What'll typically happen, like you said, is the kid will appear at the bus stop that they went last year. The bus driver likely, will make a note about the child when they get to the school. They'd convey to whoever the administrator getting the kids off the bus is that, Jay rode today, but he's, we know he's going to the school, but he's not on the bus. He'd get referred to like the guidance counselor or the social worker to make contact with the family to, figure that out. But, one way or the other, we do have to get the kids registered to ride the bus so that we can account for them. They can be given an appropriate, bus time to pick up, drop off. The family needs to know, like, if the child doesn't appear, who to call, that kind of information.
Okay, so if the child arrives, goes to that old bus stop and comes in, fine. But if not, then they just don't make it to school. And how about in terms of knowing where to go, especially when it's a new school?
What do you mean by it's a new school?
They don't know their assignment. So let's say they were at Center School last year.
Yeah.
They're now going to be at Parker, but they don't know what their assignment is.
They don't know they're assigned a room?
She's talking about schedule. So when that happens, when students get off the
know where to show
buses,
up.
there are so many people out in the front, like it's all hands on deck. So as students get off the bus, even the ones that do know what their homeroom is, where their teacher's supposed to be, or their schedule, they're lost because they went on a tour
find
and
it.
then they don't know. So there are plenty of people there that stop the students, like you can tell who they are when they walk off the bus. And they'll say, can I help you? We'll find out who's this student, the secretary's out there, and then they bring them to their homerooms.
Okay.
In terms of the bus, if they are supposed to register and then they can't, they don't have a computer, they usually typically call the school. The school would make accommodations for the parent to use a computer at the school if they have transportation. So they usually work with them, especially even like your L population. Those L teachers know who their students are. They're looking for them. They're in constant contact with those families. But the school will be looking for the students anyway. But if when they get to school and they don't know where to go, they start showing them where to go. They have the student ambassadors out in the hallways. It's a big feat, but we get them in there, and believe it or not, it kind of happens in 10 or 15 minutes tops. It's amazing.
Yeah. One of the families has children both at the elementary and at the middle school, in both middle schools.
Yep.
And it's transitional years for each one of the middle school kids. So at the elementary, they know what, because they were emailed and somebody is checking the email for them, but they don't have a computer. And they were told where to show up. But for the middle school kids, there was no such
They
thing.
should call if they want to, they can call the school, but they also can call transportation with Peter Burkalis. He'd be able to tell them where they should
Okay.
go. If they have
All
a
right.
phone. And if they don't have a phone, then that's a whole nother conversation.
Okay.
Any other questions on transportation? Just so people know they can still sign up, so.
You have to.
If you haven't done it yet,
yeah, we'll
please,
find
please take care of that.
We can, and again, this happens every year, right? So, and if you think about it, we're transporting over 3,000 kids a day on 29 vehicles. Yes, buses are going to run late. I was even driving, I had to go to a meeting today, and I was driving back, and I didn't realize that they were going to be doing road construction on North Road, which is significant, so I got rerouted. So it took me 15 minutes longer to get back to the office than I anticipated. Like, those little things are going to happen. We're going to make a conscious effort to really try to communicate when we can. If we know, sometimes we don't know, but if we know something's running late or something's running, typically it doesn't run early, but if something is running late, we will make the conscious effort to let people know over the course of this year. But work with us for the first couple of weeks. Things will shake out by, mid-September, as they always do. And you can always sign up to add. It's crucial that we have that information so that we, again, just for accountability's sake, know who's on our buses, that we have the right numbers on the buses. We don't have too many or too few. But, we'll work with families too if families are having troubles.
Anything else? All right, capital projects.
So here's a sense of some of the work that's been taking place. And again, we'll visit some of these a little bit later so you can actually see some of the work that's in progress. This has been a very busy summer for us. We have a lot of different kind of hands in the pot. So on the school department end, Brian Curley is our director of facilities. He manages a bunch of these school department-related projects. We work very closely with the town. Christine Clancy, the DPW director, and Matt Schweitzer, who's the facilities manager. They're managing a bunch of these different projects. Gary Persichetti, who actually used to work for the town, came back part-time, and he's helping manage a couple of these projects. So there's a lot of action taking place. It's a combination of, town capital funds, some school department ESSER funds are paying for some of this, town ARPA funds are paying for it. So there's a considerable amount of time and effort that has gone into these capital projects. And unique to school systems is, we kind of call them summer slammers, but you've got 8 or 9 weeks when there's no one really in the buildings where you've got to do this work. Because over the course of the school year, it's just not conducive to heavy construction projects. So overall, I think we're in good shape. We still have a lot to finish up over this next week or two. But here's kind of a highlight of the major projects that took place this summer. So over at Parker, we obviously redid the whole gymnasium floor. So the old floor was in tough shape. It's used quite a bit, obviously, during the school day by our staff, but we've got a lot of extra groups that use it after hours. So a whole new, it's a poured floor, a whole new poured floor went into Parker Gym, and that came out beautiful. That's ready to go for day one. Again, in an effort to try to kind of build some more kind of private spaces for student counseling and to meet with the counselors and psychologists. They have a very large conference room near the cafeteria, kind of at the top of the stairs, if you think about it. And we worked with a contractor. We divided up that space into a couple of different offices. So the school is making that kind of a counseling clinical psych space so that kids can have kind of quiet places and times to meet with the psychologist. And then they relocated the conference room to one of the other psychologist's former office. So it's a little bit quieter and it's a little bit more conducive to holding meetings as well. Because sometimes it was difficult to be near the cafeteria and you're trying to conduct a meeting. It was a little bit loud. One project that obviously you can't see from the ground level, but that is ongoing right now, is the replacement of all the RTUs, or what we call a rooftop unit, in the modular classrooms. So those buildings are constructed in such a way that they have a dedicated rooftop unit that handles all the air conditioning and heat in those buildings, and they will really be on the useful life. So over the last 2 weeks, all the old units were craned down, all the new units were craned up, and they're going through the process right now of connecting all of those units. We had to add a lot of additional power to the school, but that's in the works and will be completed by heating season. We really need those to kick on for the heating season. So Parker overall is in good shape. Everything is moving along fairly well there. At McCarthy, obviously, one of the big projects we had this summer was creating that secure entryway, we'll call it a vestibule at McCarthy, similar to what we have at the high school. That is under construction right now. We're probably looking at another week to a week and a half for that to be finalized. The structure's been built. We're just looking for final taping, doors and things like that are actually going in tomorrow. So that'll be up and rolling right after we get the school year going, which is great. That's one of the things that we're going to take a trip over to later on. The whole front entryway, the door, we call them storefront units, the doors are all being replaced in the front of McCarthy, even separate from the secure entryway. And then that necessitated having to dig up and redo the front walkway with all new kind of cement and things like that, a whole new handicap ramp. So that is actually began today and is being continued to be worked on tomorrow. That'll be done by next Monday when the kids and staff come back. And then lastly, at McCarthy, you can't really see this, but they also got new rooftop units on their modular classrooms.
I was going to ask, what are we doing at McCarthy? Are we eventually going to translate to other schools like at Parker into the,
For the rooftop units?
no, the vestibule type of thing?
Oh, yes, so McCarthy was the trickiest
Yeah.
of all, just because of the blind sight lines. There's really no sight line to the office. We had to really create from scratch the area there. But yes, what we wanted to do is kind of go through the process this year at McCarthy, because again, we know it's the most difficult, of kind of building out the space, almost as like an example of what we'd like it to look like in the other buildings. And then this fall, we actually will engage the architectural firm to do the design work for the other schools. It's just going to be much more cut and dry at the other buildings, and even when we go to them, I can show you. But typically, the other ones, when you walk in, it'll be very easy to just construct an L-shaped wall, because there's already a window there to be able to do the check-in system with the kids, and that just once you actually check in, you'll be able to get buzzed into the building. That was, because you have the sight line, just much easier to do than the other ones. We really wanted to kind of test McCarthy and see how that went. So I see those projects actually getting kind of plans done up, budget costs put to them, and going into capital this fall to be done probably next summer. So we're still probably like a year out from doing them, but at least we'll have the design and everything kind of ready to go.
Now, at the high school, when we did that, I believe we had to have a new position, or we had to have a person transfer from one position.
Yeah,
to-
they had to
do that.
relocate.
What happens at McCarthy?
Well, at McCarthy and even at the other, like elementary schools, when we do this, the school clerk that was responsible for checking in and checking out students, like at McCarthy, they're just going to relocate to that new space.
Okay.
In the other elementary schools and even the other middle school, Parker, there's already a school clerk sitting at the window, so they're really not going to have to relocate because we're just going to be building the wall kind of where they are already. But at McCarthy, physically, because there's no sight line to the office, it's just the individual is going to relocate.
Okay.
And I'll show you that all when we get there. I think it'll make more sense when you see it. But I'm very happy with how those are progressing. Elementaries, we didn't do quite as much work this summer as we did last summer, just project-wise. We hit them with a lot last year. At Byam, we had, the kitchen floor over there was really in tough shape. So we had a whole new kitchen floor poured. So we're not going to go out to Byam just because of the proximity. But the poured floor that we did at Byam is similar to what you're going to see, the poured floor at the McCarthy or Parker or even the high school kitchen. And then the second floor bathrooms, we had done over February and April vacation. Those floors were in tough shape. They weren't redone when they did the bathroom upgrade. So we had a company come in and actually re-pour floors in the lower level of Byam. It went really well. I forget if it was February or April, but we decided to go ahead and do the second floor bathrooms at Byam this summer. So that was completed over there, and they came out very nice. So that's in good shape. At South Row, the town received that grant to install the lightning protection system at South Row, so that has been installed. We were also able to, there's that overhang in front of the building. It's kind of metal, but that was in tough shape. So the roof had been replaced a couple of years ago when we did the accelerated repair program with MSBA, but we had that all reconditioned and repainted, and it looks sharp for the opening of school. So that's in good shape. Harrington and Westlands, again, you don't really see this because it's in the boiler room, but those two boilers are being replaced. We had to crane out the old units about a week and a half ago. Last Friday, they craned in the new units to those buildings. So between now and the end of September, those will all be hooked up. So we're ready to go for a heating season. But those two obviously needed it. They were at life end. Very similar to Center. We did Center over April vacation, and that was needed there as well. The high schools where a lot of the activity took place this summer. The kitchen renovation is in full swing. This was a significant, probably $2.5 million project. It is going to look great when it is done. We have had construction complications throughout the process, and it's probably running about 3 weeks behind schedule at this point. So we do have contingencies in effect for the opening of school and how we're going to prepare and serve meals at the high school. We are going to have full use of both the lunchrooms so that the kids will be able to have spaces, particularly if it rains, to eat. We're going to implement some of the old kind of COVID lunch protocols when we're at the high school. We are going to allow the kids to say eat lunch on the plateau like they had done before, just to be able to get outside when the weather's nice. The kids actually like that anyway. But we'll be bringing in some food from McCarthy and Parker, and then also we're going to be doing some grilling on site. So we'll have barbecues for a couple of weeks at the high school. In the end, it's going to look great. It just ended up having a couple of unforeseen plumbing issues that required a lot of extra work, and it's just coming along. But we have provisions in place, so we'll be good on that front. The art classrooms are coming out great, so they're about 95% done. Those we'll look at today. Those included, complete new flooring. A couple of walls had to be actually built to separate out the spaces. New woodworking and cabinetry in the rooms themselves. New plumbing for the sinks. I think the teachers are going to be thrilled when they come back in the fall and see how nice those rooms came out. We did new ceilings, new lighting. It really looks like a completely different space. The one thing we don't do a good job at, and I really wish we did, is take more like before and after pictures, because we get deep into the construction, we kind of forget, what we should have taken the before so that we could show it. But it really does look excellent. The sports courts in the back of the school are coming along. If you've driven through the back parking lot, the tennis courts and the basketball and street hockey were all ripped up over the course of the springtime. And then the tennis courts, the 6 courts, it's a post-tension concrete surface that's going in place. It's absolutely A+ level foundation that's going in for these courts. That's already poured in place. The fencing is already up around them. And I believe they're going to start smoothing and then doing their layering and painting about a week from now. On the backside, where basketball and street hockey were in play, that's going to be more hot top. It's not going to be cement as a base. So that's been all leveled and is going to go down next week. One thing that we are looking at is potentially switching out the street hockey for pickleball at the high school and moving the street hockey over to McCarthy, because we're actually going to have a warrant article on for that this fall about redoing the McCarthy space. It's quite possible over the next couple of years that pickleball may become a high school sport. And it's becoming quite popular, but certainly wouldn't be bad to have them located at, what are you looking at?
I think it's going to be great. Coach?
And I do
couldn't wait to say it.
I do like pickleball myself. So there's a chance of that, but also
love it.
the middle school kids are more active with the street hockey. So it kind of makes sense to have that actually over at McCarthy. So we are looking at that because it might be kind of cost neutral and just makes sense where we're actually doing this project all at the same time. But I'll have more to report on that. But all in all, I think that'll be done. I think we had like an October 15th date for that to be all completed. At least the big construction work is done. So when the kids come back to school, they're not going to have to be dealing with that. It's going to be painting and surfacing, and so those will look wonderful. In the back of the stadium, we had a significant cement pad poured to house the new storage units that are coming in place. They're on track to arrive the second week in September. So at least the surface that they're going to go on is looking great. That should really be a nice addition. It's going to allow the high school athletic group, both at that stadium and even like McCarthy, we have a lot of just equipment that ends up being like out on a field or on the side of the field and things like that. It'll be able to be nicely stored and secured. That's going to provide them a lot of great space. And then downstairs in the science rooms, we had an old kind of chemical storage room where they would use chemicals and things like that. They would also do some science prep. That whole room and an adjacent room were kind of all joined into making, there will be a prep area. There's also going to be a classroom area for kids to work on projects in, and storage as well. So that's in its final stages now, too. We're probably another week and a half away from that. So all in all, when we get to the high school, a ton of activity taking place there. But I think, by the mid to end of September, when we really get up and rolling, people are going to be very excited about the improvements we've made. And then lastly, we're on track with our big kind of 3 technology enhancements, and these all came from that safety audit that we had done. Obviously, the McCarthy front entry vestibule area is not only the physical build of the space, but Bill has to add all the technology for the cameras and the access control systems and communication systems, so that is all hardwired and ready to go. Visitor management, very similar to what we have at the high school, is being added at all schools this fall. So that is going to be rolled out school by school, just because it takes a little bit of training. But the system is in, it's already being programmed and sent to the schools. So again, within the first couple of weeks of the school year, we'll introduce the visitor management system and some stricter screening protocols for entry into the buildings. And then lastly, we did purchase and are in the process right now of kind of finalizing the setting up of the network with radio communication system. So we have a completely new radio system that integrates not only individual schools, but the whole district on its our own network. And certain individuals are also tied in with the police department connections. So that's a nice feature. That's probably rolling out over the next week or two as well. So right as we're coming back to school, those 3 big projects are also finalizing, and I think are going to be welcomed additions to the district.
Any questions on capital? Question, I know it's not something that's physically going on, but I know the planning, can you give an update on like the South Road roof project and McCarthy roof project, even if you can even talk about that?
Yes, so South Row I can actually very easily talk about. So we had a phone call with the MSBA last Wednesday or Thursday. This is for the accelerated repair statement of interest that we provided, and that went well. They obviously knew the South Row roof because they'd done a portion of it a couple of years back. I think it was in 18. Had a good call with them. They actually were on site today at 11:30 over at South Row to walk the building and to go up on the roof and just take a look at the existing conditions. I think they have all the information they need now to decide. They have 72 different projects that were submitted that are eligible for funding across the state. I think it's just going to become a capacity issue. And the age of our roof qualified, they had all the paperwork that they need on it. We'll likely hear towards the early part of October if we're going to be allowed into that particular program. The MSBA, I think, meets the last Monday in October. So we would officially be invited into the into the accelerated repair program at that point if we get in. It would then be about a 1.5 year long project, because after you get voted in, you have to do all your paperwork and everything like that. It'd be probably January, February by the time that they would actually assign an architect and a project manager. You then have to kind of do all your bid specs and things like that, get board approval from the MSBA like in June or July. And then at that point in time, you have to finalize all your construction documents, do your bidding. So it is likely that if we get approved, that roof would be done not next summer of '25, but the summer of '26. It's crazy, but it actually takes that long.
Just for a roof?
Yeah,
Is it the same reimbursement rate as for a building?
approximately.
Oh, 52%.
About 52%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they may do something to just see if that's what we still qualify
Yeah.
for, but it's a 52% reimbursement, so it's well worth doing. When you work with the MSBA, it just takes a little bit longer because you have steps you've got to complete with them. On a positive note, they've already pre-screened the designers and the OPMs, so you don't have to go through a bidding process to bring those on yourself. You just get assigned one by them. It's just a little bit more cumbersome. The other issue for us, though, is, again, because we're a school, we can only replace a roof during the summer. It would be again, if the roof blew off mid-school year, yes, you'd have to do it, but it's just loud, it's cumbersome to do. So those are things we try to do during the summers. There would not be enough time to be able to physically do it for summer '25 by the time you went out to bid and had your contracts in place and things like that. That's why it's likely to be the summer '26. But we'll know in October. I think, obviously, if it passes, Paul was considering putting on a kind of a temporary or like a provisional warrant article that says, if we're approved by the MSBA, then the town would commit X number of funding. The only thing we have to pay for is the schematic design of the project. I'm going to guess about $100,000. So I would assume town meeting would appropriate $100,000 contingent on the MSBA inviting us in. If that then happens, it would kick in. There was another project you asked about? Oh, McCarthy Roof is more in the exploratory stages.
Okay.
So DPW is putting out I forget exactly what it was called. I don't think it was like an RFP, but it was some kind of a request for contractors to take a look at that particular roof. They were going to do some corings to figure out exactly what needed to be replaced, like how significant damage was. And then their thought process was to get that into a report to ultimately come back to to the Capital Planning Committee this November to potentially get funding to do the whole roof. And then that could actually even be next summer if everything worked out well. But that's where that one stands. That one does not qualify for the MSBA because of the age of the
But we
roof.
put aside some money for study or something like that?
It's the study piece,
Yeah, yeah,
basically.
right.
So they're working on the study piece to
Okay.
be able to bring that data back to the Capitol for this year to try to get in the pipeline.
Just, what if it leaks? And then we have to do temporary stuff?
Right, I mean, and this happens now, like, we'll get a roof leak from time to time, but it's basically just patching. So if a roof, unless it's like a huge structural issue, they basically just would patch, until we actually were able to put a new roof on.
Great. Any other questions on capital? Right, thank you for the updates.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot happened this summer, like I said, lots still to be done, but we had a very good, productive summer capital-wise.
All right, and personnel.
Yep, personnel, this is just in your packet, you had a copy of the personnel report for the month of July. So again, this kind of included some of the reports of individuals who are newly hired to the district. We had a lot of hiring that was taking place. You're going to see effective date 8/26 on a lot of these individuals because even if they were hired in the spring or early in the summer, they don't start until next Monday just because of the kind of positions that they have. We do have a few resignations, a couple of retirements were formalized, and that data is all provided for you. We have just a couple of individuals within the district transfer from one position to another. That's also noted.
How did the hiring fair go?
The hiring fair actually went very well. So I know Diane Carey and the individuals from HR were pleased with our first year of doing it. They worked very closely with the Lowell, the Career Center there. And I believe they had approximately 100 individuals pre-register to come to the event. I know they were able to hire a number of food service workers, paraprofessionals, lunch and recess aides. We didn't have too many professional openings left for individuals to be applying for. It ended up being a lot more support staff that were able to kind of screen. A lot of the principals met on site, conducted interviews on site, but it was well worth it. I want to say about 100 people came in, and they did hire a significant number of people to help fill some of our spots.
That's wonderful. How about the psychologist positions? They're all full?
Not quite. So we're doing fairly well on that, too. Nothing has changed since the last time we talked. We have 3 openings this year because we have 3 retirements, which is very unusual in the psychology world. So we have 2 excellent candidates coming in. They're starting orientation, actually. We'll see them tomorrow. We have not been able to secure a third yet. We do have a second-round interview with a candidate tomorrow. We're hoping to be able to lock in that third candidate. In the event, just so you're comfortable, in the event that we're not able to actually hire a third candidate, it is unusual to be hiring 3 in any one year. We would have to look at more of a contracted services model. It's not that services wouldn't get fulfilled this year. We just may have to actually contract with individuals, maybe one, maybe multiple individuals, to provide some of the testing or services that would need to get provided. So the services will occur. It's just by who. Is it going to be a staff member or is it going to be a contracted psychologist? So that we don't know yet. Again, overall, with our kind of permanent licensed positions in the district, We're down to still the elusive Spanish teacher at the high school level. We do have an interview tomorrow as well on that, so we're hoping to be able to fill that position. We have the psychologist at center, and then we have a life skills position at center as well. Those are the three positions that we're still trying to finalize.
So I was going to ask, with these newly reported retirements, for example, those positions have since been filled. I didn't see them on the new hires, so I wasn't sure.
Well, yeah, so those people had been with us for a while, and they told us they were retiring like last winter. So they were on the first round of hiring we did in the springtime. So,
Oh, I didn't realize that. 'Cause
yeah,
I
they're
just-
not like new retirements. It just happened to be that's when they didn't have an effective date on the last day of school.
Got
They
it.
must have a birthday over the summer or something, and they're waiting to retire on the birthday. So that's why the effective date's a little bit different.
So those positions have been filled. Those are not currently.
Yeah, no, we got a great nurse candidate for Byam who's going to be starting, and I forget the individual's name who's the math teacher at the high school, but that's been filled as well. So we're really just down to those three. Spanish at the high school, clinical psych at center, and a life skills at center.
Great.
Most of our, we've actually been very lucky this week. A lot of our long-term subs for the beginning of the year openings have been filled. So we're in good shape on that too. A handful of paras we're still looking to hire. On a positive note, we're getting applicants. So we're actually getting applicants each day for some of these jobs. It's just a matter of, quickly acting upon them, interviewing them, and getting offers out before other districts do, because other districts are in the same ballpark as us.
Any other questions on personnel? All right, any liaison reports people have? I know it's still early. Susan?
I have a really quick one. The town strategic plan steering committee has created a little blurb title for ourselves. It's called Creating Chelmsford's Future, a Strategic Plan. So you might start seeing that on documents around town. And just to let people know that there are now going to be 4 community visioning forums scheduled. The very first one, the kickoff event, is going to be held on September 18th at 5:30 PM at the Chelmsford Elks Lodge. Anyone in town is invited. There's going to be free ice cream, snacks, and you can even bring your kids. There's going to be kids' craft activities there, so.
Can you tell me the
people
date of
know.
that again?
It is September 18th. I think that's a Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday, September 18th, 5:30 PM at the Elks.
Okay.
And there's going to be little tables set up to do different discussion groups about what people hope for in the town of Chelmsford.
Great.
All right, any other liaison reports?
No.
No, not yet. I'm sure it'll be coming fast and furious next month.
I already know my first meetings,
Yeah,
but.
that's
they
good.
haven't happened yet.
Strategic planning did meet, because we were starting to prepare for the administrators
Okay, yeah.
retreat.
Yeah, okay.
So we did. We had a meeting.
With that Barry Dunn
with-
people?
with my subcommittee
Yeah.
met the.
Oh, the school
DM
strategic plan,
DM,
yes, yeah.
The equity subcommittee. Yeah, not your strategic
Got
plan.
it.
Not the town.
I wasn't available that day, but my subcommittee did meet, and I got feedback, so I
Yes.
do know about that.
That's great.
All right, anyone have any new items at this point? I just want to, I got an email from Town Manager Cohen about a committee orientation meeting on Tuesday, September 24th. I guess it goes out to all the committees, boards in town, asking people to attend. I guess the legal counsel will be there for the town, just to discuss things about public meetings and public input and that type of thing. So I'll forward you the email. I just got it today. So I'll forward the email. It's on the 24th, which is a Tuesday, which I don't think we meet that one at 6 o'clock. And that one will be at the Chelmsford Public Library. So I'll forward that along to everybody and maybe try to dig out and see what else that involves besides those type of things.
We don't have a meeting that day.
Yeah. The other thing, just a reminder, the MASC conference, I know Superintendent Lang sent
Yeah.
something out as well in terms of just if you want to attend to see Robin.
Yeah, if you just forward Robin, just shoot her an email or call her, and just let her know like how many dates you expect to go or you want to go, and she'll fill out all the paperwork for you and get you registered. Obviously, there's a base conference hotel, but there's also you can book your hotel anywhere. There's other options to go to. It starts, I'm kind of waiting myself to just see exactly what the agenda is going to look like and who's presenting what. But it's typically like a Wednesday, is it Wednesday?
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, there's like a Saturday meeting, but that's like
Yeah.
not.
We typically at most would do like the Wednesday, Thursday, maybe Friday piece. I don't know that people have stayed for the Saturday. You're certainly welcome to if you want to. But once the agenda gets posted and we kind of know who's doing what, I'll figure out like what days I plan to go. I'll certainly let you know. You're welcome to come for as much or as little as you like. And again, if you decide to stay, you can kind of just book wherever you like. I just gave you a couple of ideas, but wherever you pick is fine. And just let Robin know for the registration. She'll take care of that for you.
And one of the things we've done in the past, if you reserve, say Wednesday night, Thursday night, and then you find out, well, there's nothing good on Friday, and you want to cancel a night, you can always do that too. Because we don't know what's going to be on each day. I mean, the program's not out yet. I know, I looked today to see if there's not, at least preliminary program, there's nothing, so you don't know, what sessions are going to be on what days.
And wrote to the organizer and have yet to hear back.
Yeah. If you do, let us know.
Yeah, I don't know how even like finalized they're on it yet, so I'm not surprised.
So.
So you know, I booked at least temporarily for the Wednesday, Thursday night, and I'll look and see what it is. The hotels have a 24-hour cancellation, so if I end up going Wednesday and staying Wednesday, I'll just cancel the Thursday, or, maybe nothing's really happening until Thursday, Friday. But you can always just reserve a room if you need to, and then just cancel within 24 hours and you don't have to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Check each house.
Each hotel may have a
hotel's-
different
okay,
policy, yeah.
Right.
What their policies
What their
are.
policy is. I don't know if every policy is the same.
I know for sure personally that I cannot do Friday because I have an immigration conference in Boston all day.
Okay.
You can go right from one conference to the next.
And it starts really early, it ends really late on that day, so I know that I can't miss that one. But Wednesday and Thursday, I'll look to see what the topics are.
Yeah, so if anything comes out, if you see something forward along, but
I'll certainly forward it if they get back to me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna register for the conference. I don't think you have to register by day. I'm just registering for the meals for Wednesday and Thursday.
okay.
All right, anything else? Anything, other new items? Okay. All right, well, I don't think we have any other public comments, so if not, I'll take a motion to adjourn, and then we can go on a tour.
Today was 2 motions. Motion to adjourn. I move to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0. All right.
Now, is the
right.
bus for the